In the vast expanse of the Karathi Alliance territory, Nexus Prime stood as humanity's most ambitious achievement in extraterrestrial containment. The station, a magnificent artificial moon orbiting a gas giant in the Cygnus sector, housed the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. Not a zoo in the traditional sense, but rather a research facility disguised as a conservation effort. The Karathi called it preservation. The creatures inside would have called it imprisonment, had they been given a voice. Kira Lynn stood at the viewport of her transport shuttle, gazing at the imposing structure as they approached. Nexus Prime resembled a metallic snowflake, its 6 symmetrical arms extending from a central hub, each housing specialized containment sectors. Intricate lattices of energy fields and dimensional barriers shimmered around its perimeter, beautiful and deadly all at once. First assignment jitters? The pilot's voice crackled through the comm. Kira smiled, though she knew he couldn't see her face. Is it that obvious? Everyone's nervous their first time at Nexus. The place has a reputation. She had studied the specifications for months. As an Earth-trained maintenance technician specializing in cross-dimensional barrier systems, Kira understood the engineering behind Nexus Prime better than most. What she couldn't prepare for was the emotional weight of the place, knowing what lived inside those walls. "I'm just here to fix the secondary containment grid in Section 6, she said, more to herself than the pilot. 3 weeks, in and out. The pilot chuckled. That's what they all say. The docking procedure took nearly 40 minutes, far longer than standard protocol at other stations. Every airlock required triple authentication, and the decontamination process was thorough to the point of discomfort. By the time Kira stepped onto the main concourse, her skin tingled from the specialized radiation that had swept over her body, eliminating any potential cross-contaminants. Technician Lin, a tall, slender figure, approached with measured steps. His blue-tinged skin identified him as Karathi, one of the Alliance's founding species. "I am Operations Supervisor Thalix. You are precisely on schedule." Kira extended her hand, then quickly retracted it, remembering the Karathi aversion to physical contact. "Thank you for the welcome, Supervisor. Your quarters have been prepared in the maintenance staff wing. You will find your clearance badge and station protocols uploaded to your personal device." His voice was flat, emotionless, typical Karathi efficiency. "Your work begins at Oru 600 station time tomorrow. I suggest you use the interim to acclimate to our gravity and atmospheric settings." "I'd like to see the containment systems tonight, if possible," Kira said. "Just a preliminary assessment before—" "That would violate protocol." Thalix's silver eyes narrowed slightly. "Rest. Acclimate. Work begins tomorrow." Before she could protest, he turned and walked away, leaving Kira alone in the sterile, white concourse. She sighed, adjusting the weight of her duffel bag on her shoulder. 3 weeks suddenly felt like a very long time. Her quarters were utilitarian but comfortable. A single room with attached hygiene facilities, a sleep platform that conformed to human physiology, and a small workstation. The viewport offered a stunning view of the gas giant below, its swirling storm systems creating hypnotic patterns of amber and crimson. Kira unpacked quickly, arranging her tools in the order she preferred them. Her personal effects were few: a small hologram of her parents back on Earth, a well-worn copy of advanced theoretical applications of dimensional physics, and a tiny potted succulent that had somehow survived 6 interstellar jumps. She activated her station-issued tablet and began reviewing the schematics for Section 6. The secondary containment grid had been showing fluctuations for the past month, nothing critical yet, but concerning enough to warrant specialist attention. As she scrolled through the maintenance logs, a notification flashed across her screen. Species, profile access. Granted, maintenance authorization level 2. Curious. Kira tapped the notification. A new menu appeared, offering limited access to information about the contained species in her assigned section. This wasn't standard procedure on most stations. Technicians were usually kept deliberately ignorant about the specimens to prevent emotional attachment or unnecessary fear. "Might as well know what I'm protecting everyone from," she murmured, scrolling through the list until one entry caught her eye. Designation: Void Stalker. Origin: Unknown. Discovered in deep space. Sector 9. Threat. Classification: Apex Predator, Class 1. Containment. Protocols: Classified Note. Subject requires specialized dimensional containment. No image accompanied the entry. Just a pulsing red icon indicating highest threat level. Kira frowned. The Karathi classification system rarely used Apex Predator designation. It was reserved for creatures that had demonstrated not just physical prowess, but problem-solving abilities that rivaled sentient species. She tapped for more information, but the screen simply flashed. "Access denied." With a sigh, she set aside the tablet and stretched out on the sleep platform. Despite her earlier eagerness to inspect the systems, fatigue from the long journey settled into her bones. Within minutes, she drifted into an uneasy sleep, dreams filled with shadowy creatures lurking just beyond the edge of perception. The station alert jolted her awake at 04:30, nearly 2 hours before her scheduled start time. Red emergency lights pulsed throughout her quarters as a calm, automated voice announced, "Attention all personnel. Containment anomaly detected in Section 6. Non-essential personnel remain in quarters. Containment teams report to staging area. This is not a drill." Kira leapt from bed, pulling on her maintenance jumpsuit and grabbing her emergency toolkit. Section 6. Her section. Whatever was happening involved the systems she was brought here to fix. Protocol dictated she should stay put as non-essential personnel until officially on duty. But instinct told her otherwise. She slipped into the corridor, which was already filled with station personnel, moving with urgent purpose. Following the flow towards Section 6, she reached a security checkpoint, where a Karathi guard blocked her path. "Identification," he demanded. Kira held up her badge. "Maintenance Technician Lin, assigned to Section 6 containment grid." The guard's silver eyes narrowed as he scanned her credentials. "You are not scheduled to begin until 0600. I'm the specialist for these systems. If there's a containment anomaly, I should be there." For a moment, she thought he would refuse, but a burst of chatter from his comm unit seemed to change his mind. "Proceed directly to Monitoring Station 6A. Do not deviate." The monitoring station was a hub of frantic activity when she arrived. Screens displayed various angles of a containment chamber, a massive, hexagonal room with walls that seemed to shift and ripple with dimensional energy. In the center stood what appeared to be a cage, though cage hardly did justice to the complex structure of overlapping force fields and reality anchors. Inside that cage was nothing, or what appeared to be nothing at first glance. "Where is Supervisor Thalix?" a voice boomed from the doorway. Kira turned to see a Karathi in elaborate uniform, clearly someone of high rank. "Director Verax." Thalix stepped forward, his typically composed demeanor showing hints of stress. "We have a situation with the Void Stalker." "I can see that," the director snapped. "Explain how a creature in our most secure containment has created a 17-second breach window." Kira's attention snapped back to the screens. The emptiness within the cage wasn't quite empty after all. As she watched, the air seemed to fold in on itself, creating a ripple effect like heat rising from hot pavement. But instead of dissipating, the ripple intensified, briefly revealing a glimpse of something, a darkness deeper than black, with edges that hurt her eyes to focus on. "It's testing the dimensional barriers," she murmured, stepping closer to the monitors. The director's silver eyes fixed on her. "Who is this human?" "Technician Lin," Thalix replied, "the specialist for the Section 6 containment grid." "And why is she offering opinions on our most dangerous specimen?" Kira refused to be intimidated. Because your specimen is deliberately creating oscillation patterns in the dimensional barriers, the same patterns I was brought here to fix. It's not random. It's methodical. The Void Stalker is testing for weaknesses. A hush fell over the room. On the screen, the ripple effect intensified, and for a split second, Kira caught sight of what looked like an elongated limb, impossibly thin and articulated in ways that defied conventional anatomy, before it vanished again. "It's learning," she added quietly. "And, if I'm reading these systems correctly, it's created a predictable failure point. 17 seconds where the dimensional barriers will be weak enough to—" An alarm shrieked through the monitoring station. On screen, the ripple effect had expanded dramatically, and the cage's energy fields flickered. For 17 precise seconds, a section of the barrier dimmed, and in that moment, the nothing that was the Void Stalker moved. "Full containment protocol!" Director Verax shouted. "Release the hunters!" The next few hours were chaos. Kira found herself relegated to a corner of the monitoring station, watching as the Karathi implemented their emergency response. 12 specialized hunters, tall, armored figures carrying weapons that seemed to bend light around them, entered the containment sector. They moved with eerie coordination, communicating through subvocal implants as they systematically sealed and searched each subsection. "What exactly is the Void Stalker?" Kira asked, a nearby technician, a young Karathi who seemed less hostile to her presence than the others. "A nightmare," he replied simply. "Discovered in deep space 5 years ago, feeding on the energy emissions of a dying star. It has consumed 3 research vessels and their crews before the hunters managed to capture it." "It eats stars?" "Stars, ships, people, reality itself. The Void Stalker exists partially outside normal dimensions. It perceives time differently, moves through spaces that shouldn't exist." The technician's voice held a note of reluctant admiration. "The only reason we can contain it at all is that it appears to be juvenile." Kira felt a chill. "You're containing a baby?" "Perhaps juvenile is the wrong term. Not fully matured might be more accurate. Our scientists believe it could grow to consume entire planets if left unchecked." On the monitors, the hunters had split into 4 teams, methodically sweeping through the section. Each carried what looked like a specialized sensor array, in addition to their weapons. "They won't find it that way," Kira muttered, studying the station schematics on a nearby console. "If it can manipulate dimensional space, it won't be hiding in normal 3-dimensional locations." The young Karathi technician looked at her curiously. "What would you suggest?" "I'd check the interspatial margins, the places where dimensions fold against each other. Your containment system creates several of these, particularly around—" She pointed to a schematic. "There, Junction 42. The technician hesitated, then relayed her suggestion through his comm unit. On screen, one of the hunter teams changed direction, heading toward the junction she had indicated. The next few minutes were tense. The hunters approached the junction cautiously, their weapons raised. At first, nothing seemed amiss, just an ordinary corridor intersection with maintenance access panels along the walls. Then, slowly, a shadow seemed to separate itself from the others. Not a physical shadow, but something more fundamental, as if a piece of reality itself had been cut away, leaving a void in the shape of something. The hunters reacted instantly, surrounding the anomaly with practiced precision, their weapons emitting a high-pitched whine as they charged. "Wait," Kira said, leaning forward. "It's not attacking." Indeed. The Void Stalker remained still, its form shifting slightly, as though breathing, but making no aggressive moves. The hunters maintained their positions, a standoff that stretched for nearly a minute. Then, without warning, alarms blared throughout the station. The lighting in the monitoring room switched to emergency red as multiple system failure warnings flashed across the screens. What's happening? Director Varix demanded. Multiple containment failures across the station, a technician reported, fingers flying across his console. Environmental systems in sections 3 through 7 are shutting down. Primary power grid is fluctuating. Kira moved to an auxiliary console, accessing the maintenance diagnostics. These aren't random failures, she said, scanning the data. They're systematic. The support systems for the primary containment grid are being targeted specifically. Impossible, Thalix said. The Voidstalker has no access to station systems. It doesn't need access, Kira replied. It's not hacking your computers. It's manipulating the dimensional fabric that your systems run through. Look. She pulled up a three-dimensional model of the station, highlighting points where system failures were occurring. These are all nodal intersections where multiple dimensional planes converge. It's creating tiers in the underlying structure of reality. On the screens, chaos unfolded. The hunters had opened fire on the Voidstalker, their weapons discharging not bullets or energy beams, but what appeared to be concentrated packets of dimensional stabilizers, designed to force the creature into a single-dimensional plane where it could be more easily contained. The Voidstalker moved. Later, Kira would struggle to describe what she saw. It didn't run, or fly or teleport in any conventional sense. Rather, it seemed to slide between moments of time and folds of space, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously before settling into a new position. The hunters adjusted with remarkable speed, but they were fighting a creature that didn't fully exist in their reality. Secondary containment failures in Section 8, another technician announced. Specimens 12 through 27 are at risk of escape. Director Varex's face hardened. Implement Code Black. Prepare the station for potential purge. Kira's blood ran cold. Code Black. Station-wide termination of all specimens and sterilization of containment areas. It was the nuclear option, used only when containment failure was deemed catastrophic. Wait, she said, stepping forward. Let me try something first. This is not your jurisdiction, technician, Varex snapped. You brought me here to fix your containment systems. Let me do my job. Without waiting for permission, Kira pulled up the station's maintenance access protocols. The Voidstalker is causing systematic failures, but there's a pattern to it. If I can understand the pattern, I might be able to predict its next move. Thalix moved to stop her, but the director held up a hand. Proceed, but quickly. You have 5 minutes before I initiate Code Black. Kira nodded, fingers flying across the console as she analyzed the pattern of failures. The Voidstalker wasn't just causing random damage, it was creating a specific configuration of system failures, like a complex puzzle or a message. It's communicating, she whispered, realization dawning. These aren't attacks, they're attempts at communication. Absurd, Thalix said. The creature is a predator, not a sentient being. Why can't it be both? Kira countered. Your own reports classify it as an apex predator with problem-solving abilities. What if it's trying to tell us something? On the monitors, the hunters had cornered the Voidstalker in a maintenance bay. Their weapons had managed to partially stabilize its form, revealing more of its true appearance. A sinuous, elongated creature with multiple limbs that seemed to exist in different states of reality simultaneously. Parts of it remained hidden in dimensional pockets, giving it a fragmented appearance that strained the eyes. 3 minutes, technician, the director warned. Kira focused on the pattern again, correlating it with station schematics. It's creating a path, she said suddenly. These failures, they form a path leading from its containment chamber to here. She pointed to a location on the map. Subsection 6C. That's impossible, Thalix said. There's nothing in 6C except standard atmospheric processing. Are you sure? Kira pulled up the detailed schematics for the subsection. Because according to this, There's also a spatial anomaly detector, a device specifically designed to monitor dimensional fluctuations, the kind that might detect others like the Void Stalker. A heavy silence fell over the monitoring station. Director Verax and Thalix exchanged glances. "Is there something in that detector?" Kira asked. "Something you found along with the Void Stalker?" "That information is classified," Verax said stiffly. "Well, classified or not, your specimen is tearing apart your station to get to it." Kira stood her ground. "And unless you want to implement Code Black and kill everything on this station, I suggest you tell me what's in that detector." After a tense moment, Verax nodded to Thalix, who reluctantly accessed a secured console. A new image appeared on the main screen, a small, swirling vortex of darkness contained within a specialized field. "We found this energy signature in the same region as the Void Stalker," Thalix explained. "It appears to be a dimensional seed, possibly offspring, or a communication node. Our scientists have been studying it separately to prevent any interaction with the primary specimen." "You separated it from its child," Kira said flatly. "And you're surprised it's trying to break out?" "We don't know that it's offspring," Thalix argued. "It could be a trap, a lure, a weapon. Or it could be exactly what it looks like," Kira countered. "A parent trying to reach its child." On the monitors, the hunters had the Void Stalker surrounded, their weapons fully charged for a final containment barrage. The creature had stopped moving, its form pulsating slowly, as if gathering energy. "1 minute. Technician," Director Verax said. "What do you propose?" Kira took a deep breath. What she was about to suggest violated every containment protocol she'd ever learned. "Let me go to the Void Stalker. I'll bring the dimensional seed to its containment chamber." "Absolutely not," Thalix protested. "The risk is—" "Lower than implementing Code Black," Kira finished for him. "If I'm wrong, you lose one technician. If you're wrong, you lose your entire station and possibly create an interstellar incident when all your specimens die." Verax studied her for a long moment. "Very well, but you will be accompanied by 2 hunters, and you will follow their instructions precisely." Kira nodded. "I'll need direct access to the atmospheric systems to create a safe transport environment for the seed." As Thalix reluctantly provided her with the necessary clearances, Kira couldn't help but wonder if she was making a terrible mistake. The Void Stalker had already demonstrated intelligence and power beyond anything she'd encountered before. If she was wrong about its intentions. No time for doubts now. 2 hunters escorted her through the station's emergency corridors, their armored forms looming over her as they navigated the increasingly unstable environment. System failures had escalated. Lights flickered, gravity fluctuated, and distant alarms echoed through the halls. They reached subsection 6C to find it eerily intact compared to surrounding areas. The spatial anomaly detector sat in the center of the room, a spherical device about 1 meter in diameter. Its surface covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as they approached. "Don't touch anything without authorization," one hunter warned, his translator giving his voice a metallic quality. Kira approached the detector carefully. Through its transparent sections, she could see the dimensional seed, a swirling darkness similar to the Void Stalker, but much smaller, contained within specialized fields. "I need to transfer it to a portable containment unit," she said, examining the controls. The hunters positioned themselves at the room's entrance, weapons ready. "Be quick. The director's patience has limits." Working methodically, Kira initiated the transfer sequence. The detector hummed as it reconfigured its internal fields, preparing to release the seed into the specialized container she had brought. As the process neared completion, she noticed something odd. The seed's movements seemed to synchronize with distant vibrations running through the station. "It's resonating," she murmured. "Communicating." The portable container sealed with a soft click, the dimensional seed now safely inside. Its darkness swirled more vigorously, as if excited or agitated. "Transport secured," she announced to the hunters. "Now we need to reach the Voidstalker's containment chamber." The journey back was tense. System failures continued to spread throughout the station, though the pattern had changed, less destructive now, more focused on creating pathways and disabling security measures along their route. "It knows we're coming," one hunter observed grimly. "Yes," Kira agreed, "but I don't think it means to harm us." The hunter made a sound that might have been skepticism or amusement. "You humans and your optimism. The Voidstalker has killed hundreds." "When threatened or caged," Kira pointed out. "Have you ever tried just talking to it?" "It doesn't speak any known language." "Not with words, no. But it's been communicating through actions this entire time." They reached the primary containment sector, to find it in lockdown. The monitoring station had been evacuated, screens displaying critical failure warnings across multiple systems. Director Verax and Supervisor Thalix were waiting with the remaining hunters, all heavily armed. "Report," Verax demanded. "Seed secured," Kira replied, holding up the container. Through its walls, the dimensional darkness pulsed rhythmically. "The Voidstalker has returned to its chamber," Thalix informed them, gesturing to a monitor. "But the containment fields are severely compromised. We estimate total failure within 30 minutes. On screen, the creature had indeed returned to its cage, though cage hardly seemed an appropriate word anymore. The dimensional barriers were visibly deteriorating, reality itself seeming to bend and warp around the Voidstalker's presence. Its form was more defined now, a sinuous, multi-limbed entity that shifted between states of matter, parts of it occasionally vanishing into dimensional pockets before reappearing. "What's your plan, technician?" Verax asked, silver eyes fixed on her. Kira took a deep breath. "I go in there, alone, with the seed." The room erupted in protests. Thalix was the loudest. "Absolutely not! The creature will consume you instantly!" "I don't think it will," Kira said calmly. "It's had multiple opportunities to kill station personnel during this breakout, but it hasn't. It's been focused entirely on systems and barriers, on reaching this." She held up the container with the seed. "It's a predator," one of the hunters argued. "It doesn't show mercy." "It's a parent," Kira countered, "and it wants its child. I'm offering to return what we took." Verax studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "And if you're wrong?" "Then implement Code Black," she said simply. "But give me a chance first." After what seemed an eternity, Verax nodded. "Very well, but you will be monitored at all times. And if there is any sign of aggression from the creature, we will not hesitate to terminate both specimens. And you." Kira swallowed hard, but nodded her agreement. This was far beyond her job description as a maintenance technician, but something deep inside told her she was right about the Voidstalker. It wasn't just destruction she had seen in its actions, but purpose and intelligence. The approach to the containment chamber required passing through 6 security airlocks, each designed to maintain dimensional stability between sections. Kira walked alone, the portable container held carefully in both hands, its contents swirling with increasing agitation as they drew closer to the Voidstalker. Heart rate elevated but stable. A medical technician reported through her comm unit. Brainwave patterns showing heightened alertness, but no panic response. "I'm fine," Kira assured them, though her dry mouth suggested otherwise. The final airlock opened to reveal the antechamber of the Voidstalker's containment room. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the creature itself, more clearly now as the dimensional barriers continued to fail. It was both beautiful and terrifying, its form suggesting a predator evolved to hunt across realities rather than mere physical space. "Containment field failure accelerating," Thalix's voice warned in her ear. "You have approximately 12 minutes before total collapse." Kira approached the chamber's entrance, a massive door of layered materials. each designed to maintain separation between dimensional planes. Next to it, a control panel glowed with warning indicators. "I'm going to open the inner door," she announced, shifting the container to one arm so she could access the panel. "Technician, be advised that once that door opens, we cannot guarantee your safety." Director Verax's voice was tense. "The hunters are standing by, but their weapons may not be effective if the barriers fail completely." "Understood." Kira entered her override codes into the panel. A series of warnings flashed across the screen, each requiring separate authentication. Finally, a simple message appeared. "Final barrier release. Confirm. YN." Her finger hovered over the control. Everything in her training told her this was madness, that apex predators remained apex predators regardless of circumstance, that the Void Stalker's apparent restraint could be mere calculation rather than benevolence. But there was something else too, an intuition born from hours studying the creature's patterns, its methods of communication through system manipulations. "I'm going in," she said, and pressed Y. The massive door slid open with surprising quietness, revealing the chamber beyond. The cage at its center was barely functional now, dimensional energy flickering erratically across its structure. Within that failing containment, the Void Stalker waited, its form more solid than she had yet seen it, a creature of impossible geometry, with limbs that bent at angles that shouldn't exist, and a surface that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Kira stepped into the chamber, the door sliding shut behind her. She was now alone with one of the most dangerous entities known to the Karathi Alliance. "Hello," she said softly, knowing it couldn't understand her words but hoping it might sense her intent. "I've brought something that I think belongs to you." The Void Stalker remained still, but she felt its attention shift to the container in her arms. The seed inside was pulsing rapidly now, its darkness swirling in patterns that matched subtle shifts in the larger creature's form. Slowly, carefully, Kira approached the failing cage. The dimensional barriers sparked and hissed as reality itself protested their deterioration. The creature watched her, though it had no visible eyes. She could feel its focus like a physical weight. "I'm going to open this now," she murmured, reaching for the container's release mechanism. "And then we can all go back to our respective corners of reality without anyone getting hurt. Okay?" In her ear, Thalix's voice was frantic. "Technician, containment failure imminent. Exit the chamber immediately." Kira ignored him, her attention fixed on the Void Stalker as she released the seal on the container. The dimensional seed rose from its confinement, hovering between her and the larger creature. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the seed began to pulse with increasing intensity, darkness flowing outward in tendrils that reached toward the cage. The Void Stalker moved, its form shifting as it reached toward the seed with appendages that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. The failing barriers of its cage sparked violently where it touched them, reality itself protesting the contact. "Technician, get out now," Verax's voice thundered in her ear. "Full containment failure in 10 seconds. Kira stood her ground, watching as the dimensional seed's darkness merged with the edges of the Void Stalker's form. There was no violence in the interaction. Rather, it reminded her of reunion, of recognition, of family. The cage's barriers failed with a sound, like reality tearing, a noise that existed more in her mind than her ears. Alarms blared throughout the chamber as emergency protocols activated automatically. The Void Stalker was free. Kira closed her eyes, expecting the end. Instead, she felt a strange sensation, like standing at the edge of an abyss, feeling the pull of gravity but not falling. She opened her eyes to find the Void Stalker directly before her, its form looming over her small human frame. The dimensional seed had been absorbed into its body, visible as a swirling pattern near what might have been its core. "Are we good?" she whispered, heart pounding in her chest. The creature moved, not toward her, but around her, its form flowing like liquid shadow as it circled her position. It made no aggressive moves, simply observing. "Technician!" multiple voices shouted in her comm unit. "Status report!" "I'm fine," she managed voice, steadier than she felt. "The containment has failed, but the Void Stalker is not attacking. I repeat, not attacking. It's just watching me." "The chamber doors are opening," Thalix reported, alarm evident in his voice. "We didn't authorize." "It's not me," Kira said, watching as the massive entrance door slid open without any input from the control panel. I think it's leaving." Indeed. The Void Stalker was moving toward the open door, its form undulating as it passed through the threshold. Kira found herself following, drawn by a mixture of scientific curiosity and a strange absence of fear. In the corridor beyond, chaos reigned. Emergency lights flashed, and distant alarms indicated multiple system failures throughout the station. The hunters had positioned themselves in a defensive formation, weapons trained on the doorway. "Hold your fire!" Kira shouted, stepping into view with raised hands. "It's not hostile!" The Void Stalker emerged behind her, its darkness filling the corridor like a living shadow. The hunters tensed, weapons charging with an ominous whine. "Stand down!" Director Verax's voice came from behind the hunter line. He stepped forward, silver eyes fixed not on the creature, but on Kira. "Explain what is happening, technician." "It wanted its child, the dimensional seed," Kira said, gesturing to the swirling pattern, now visible within the Void Stalker's form. "Now it has it. I don't think it wants to fight." "And the system failures throughout the station? The other containment breaches?" "It needed a way out," Kira said simply. "You wouldn't give it one, so it made its own." As if to confirm her words, the Void Stalker moved past her, flowing around the hunters without attacking. They tracked its movement with their weapons but held their fire at Verax's signal. "Where is it going?" Thalix demanded, hurrying to join them. "I don't know," Kira admitted. Then, realization dawned as she recalled the station schematics. The central hub, where the dimensional planes converge. They followed the creature through the station's corridors. A bizarre procession, led by an entity that existed partially outside normal reality. Station personnel flattened themselves against walls as they passed, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Remarkably, the Void Stalker made no aggressive moves toward anyone, simply continuing its purposeful journey. In the central hub, other alarms were sounding. On monitoring screens, Kira could see that multiple containment sectors were experiencing failures. Not critical yet, but concerning. "The other specimens are responding to the Void Stalker's presence," a technician reported. "They're becoming agitated." The creature paused in the center of the hub, its form expanding and contracting in a rhythmic pattern. The dimensional seed within it pulsed in sync, creating ripples that spread outward through the station's very fabric. "It's communicating," Kira said, watching the patterns. "Not with us, with the other specimens." On the monitors, something extraordinary began to happen. The agitated specimens, everything from crystalline energy beings to phase-shifting predators, were calming. More than that, they were returning to their designated containment areas voluntarily, as if responding to some silent command or request. "Impossible," Thalix whispered. "The specimens have no shared communication method. They come from different galaxies, different evolutionary paths." "Maybe not in ways we understand," Kira suggested. "But they all exist within the same dimensional framework. The Void Stalker operates partially outside that framework. It can perceive and manipulate the connections between realities." The Void Stalker's pulsations intensified, and the seed within it glowed with dark energy. Around them, the station's systems began to stabilize. Power fluctuations ceased, gravity normalized, and one by one, containment fields reactivated. "It's fixing the station?" a hunter asked incredulously. "Not fixing," Kira corrected. "Reconfiguring, creating a new balance." She watched in fascination as readouts showed containment systems shifting to new configurations, less restrictive, more adaptable, yet paradoxically more stable. Director Verax approached cautiously, standing beside Kira as they observed the phenomenon. "What is happening, Technician Lin?" "I think we've been looking at this all wrong," she replied softly. "The specimens aren't just prisoners to be contained. They're part of an ecosystem. The Void Stalker isn't just an apex predator. It's an apex harmonizer. It perceives the connections between realities and adjusts them." The creature continued its work for nearly an hour, its form shifting and flowing as it manipulated the dimensional fabric of the station. Finally, it returned to where Kira and the Karathi officials waited, hovering before them like a sentient shadow. "What does it want now?" Thalix asked, a note of resignation in his voice. Kira studied the Void Stalker, noting how the seed within it had changed, grown, somehow, integrated yet distinct. "I think it wants to stay." "Stay?" Verax echoed. "After all this?" "Not as a prisoner," Kira clarified. "As a caretaker, maybe. It could have left at any point, torn a hole in reality and disappeared. Instead, it fixed what it broke and stabilized the other specimens." The Void Stalker pulsed once, a wave of dimensional energy washing over them. It wasn't threatening, more like a confirmation. "I believe," Kira said slowly, "it's offering a partnership." The next 3 weeks were unlike anything Kira could have imagined when she arrived at Nexus Prime. Instead of repairing the secondary containment grid as planned, she found herself at the center of a fundamental paradigm shift in the station's approach to its specimens. The Void Stalker returned to its chamber voluntarily, though chamber, rather than cage, became the operative word. The dimensional barriers were reconfigured to allow it freedom of movement within certain parameters, and a permanent connection was established with the central hub, allowing it to monitor and occasionally intervene in the station's dimensional stability. Other specimens showed similar changes in behavior, given more appropriate environments and less restrictive containment. Many demonstrated intelligence and social behaviors previously unseen. Some even began rudimentary communication with their Karathi handlers, not through language, but through patterns of energy, movement, or dimensional fluctuations that Kira helped interpret. "It's not about caging them," she explained to Director Verax during one of their now regular meetings. "It's about understanding them. They're not just animals or monsters. They're entities with their own perspectives and needs." "A difficult concept for the Karathi," Verax admitted. "Our approach has always been about control and classification. And that works for some things," Kira acknowledged. "But these creatures exist partly outside our understanding of reality. Trying to force them into our framework was never going to work long-term." The Void Stalker became something of a liaison between the station personnel and the other specimens. Through its dimensional manipulations, it could convey basic concepts between species that otherwise had no means of communication. The seed, now confirmed to be offspring, grew rapidly, developing its own distinct patterns and occasionally interacting directly with Kira. "You've formed a bond with them," Thalix observed one day, watching as Kira sat quietly in the Void Stalker's chamber, the smaller offspring entity swirling around her in what almost resembled playfulness. "Not exactly a bond," she replied. "More like mutual curiosity. They perceive reality in ways I can barely comprehend, and I think they find human perception equally fascinating." As her 3-week assignment drew to a close, Kira found herself reluctant to leave. What had begun as a simple maintenance job had transformed into something unprecedented, a new approach to extraterrestrial containment that emphasized cooperation over confinement. On her final day, Director Verax called her to his office, a spare, efficient space that reflected Karathi aesthetics. "Your transport leaves in 6 hours," he said without preamble. "But before you go, I have a proposal." Kira waited, curious. The Karathi Alliance is creating a new position at Nexus Prime, Species Cooperation Coordinator. The role would involve continuing the work you've begun, developing communication methods and appropriate containment adjustments for our specimens. "You want me to stay?" Kira couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. "You have demonstrated an aptitude for understanding that, which is fundamentally different," Varix replied. "A rare quality, even among your species. The Void Stalker responds to you in ways it does not respond to others." Kira thought about Earth, about her small apartment, her routine job maintaining standard containment fields for much less exotic specimens. Then she thought about Nexus Prime, about the wonders she had only begun to explore, the paradigm shift she had helped initiate. "I accept," she said simply. Verax nodded, the Karathi equivalent of a smile briefly crossing his features. "I anticipated you would. Your new credentials and quarters have already been prepared." Later, as Kira watched her transport depart without her, she felt a familiar presence, a ripple in the dimensional fabric that indicated the Void Stalker was nearby. She turned to find both it and its offspring hovering at a respectful distance, their darkness swirling in patterns she was learning to interpret as curiosity and anticipation. "Looks like I'm staying," she told them, though she knew they didn't understand her words. "We have a lot of work to do." The Void Stalker pulsed once. Acknowledgement, perhaps, or agreement. The offspring swirled excitedly, briefly taking on a form that almost resembled Kira's human silhouette, before dissolving back into dimensional shadows. Together, they turned toward the interior of the station, toward a future where understanding replaced fear, and cooperation replaced confinement. Nexus Prime would never be the same, and neither would Kira Lynn, the human girl who had opened a gate and found not a monster, but a partner waiting on the other side. In the vastness of space, aboard an artificial moon orbiting a gas giant in the Cygnus sector, a new kind of relationship was forming, one that bridged not just different species, but different realities. It had taken 12 hunters to cage the apex predator, but it had taken just one human, with compassion and curiosity, to truly understand it. And understanding, Kira was discovering, was the most powerful containment of all.